Okay, so this is sort of a foundational concept that when I first really started trying to get some bebop in my playing, this really opened up a lot of doors and a lot of harmonic possibilities that are inherent in the relationship between minor chords and dominant chords. So what I was just doing there was I was working over G minor and C dominant, and I would take a lick and play it over the G minor and then play that same lick over C dominant, and hopefully we're able to hear how they totally work over either one. And so the concept is that the interchangeability of minor lines and dominant lines, and how that can really open up more avenues for you to draw from while you're soloing. So let's take a simple one before, say, I talk about the ones that I just played. A really good simple minor line, and a book that I really recommend is Greg Fishman's Hip Licks for Saxophone. It's a lick book, but it is super useful and it is very well laid out. And so we'll take a G minor lick, and what this is going to be is this is a lick that actually starts on the 6. So it's 6, 7, 5, 3, 2, 1. And that works over that G minor line. Walk a G minor. Very simple. We'll just stop right there. So G minor's related dominant is C dominant, because that's the 5. If G minor is a 2, then the 5 chord is C dominant going to F. So the interchangeability between the minor 2 and the dominant 5 are what we're talking about here. So that line, if you play that over C dominant, it sounds great. It's the same lick, but all those tones turn into different parts of the chord, but they are still, I guess the word I want is congruent to that chord. So, in fact, we can play a bar of G and a bar of C and play that same line, kind of see how it sounds. And I resolved it there. So that kind of sounds weird playing it right back and forth. So let's play a line over the G minor chord that is very basic G minor, and then when I go to that 5 chord, I'm going to play that G minor lick. So we're basically still doing a G minor thing here, but you'll see how it sounds. So basically my mind never shifted out of G minor. It stayed in a G minor mode, even though I was playing over the 5 for the second half of that thing. So conversely, dominant bebop lines work over that related minor. So one of the licks that I played in the little intro thing was a very bebop C bebop line. The little flourish at the end really isn't that important. The idea is this bebop line. That works over C because it's a C dominant. But you can play that over the G minor chord. And all of a sudden, that sounds really different than just playing G minor things, or, you know, G Dorian things, or whatever one might normally play over a minor. All of a sudden, it kind of sounds like jazz. So, for instance, where this is really useful is on sections of long stretches of minor chords. So say a tune like Milestones, which is a G minor forever at the beginning. So you can play G minor things, you can play Dorian things, but you can also work in those C dominant bebop lines, and all of a sudden you've got more jazz sounding stuff. That was a very basic C bebop line. So I'm just kind of going between the two. That was just bebop scale right up. I'm just in my head bouncing back and forth between the two. So once again, conversely, if you're playing over a long stretch of a dominant chord, you can play dominant bebop stuff, but you can also play play minor related lines. So we'll do this one a little slower. This is a G minor line into a bebop line. There's that line that I showed you earlier. So you can see how these things can be useful as you're playing through different stretches of changes. You can also think about it as like a 2-5-1 GCF if you could just play C dominant over the whole thing. So if we're playing a 2-5-1, 5, 1. I just walk down his bebop line. See, I just played a C dominant bebop line over both changes. Let's change it around. Let's play G minor lines over that whole thing. Those were both G minor based lines over both sets of changes. You can switch them around. You can play the dominant bebop line over the minor chord, and then you can play a minor line over the bebop chord, or over the over the bebop chord, over the dominant chord. So for instance, we'll do a real simple one. That's a good one. So bebop line there, and then when I hit the 5 chord, I spelled out a minor chord. It's all how you resolve to that following chord in that example. But the overall concept here is, if you're playing, like I said, this minor Dorian type of tune, you can play some bebop lines over it from the related dominant. So check that out and let me know what you think.